Hello everyone. On today's part of view, we are discussing fruit preservation technology, which is another important process for fruit preservation. So, which is the major two aspects: physical and chemical methods to preserving fruits. It is also part of horticultural techniques, and it is also important for the fruit preserve because some of the fleshy fruits have been damaged due to various conditions, and today's part of view we are discussing about fruit and their cultures. So basically fruit is a last part of the plant body, reproductive part. It occurs by pollination technique, and during the pollination various kind of fruits we are observe: aggregate fruit, simple fruit. There are again two basic types, and fleshy fruits and other types. So the techniques of physical process are drying, freezing and heat resistant, and due to chemical techniques, sugar, salt, chemical preservatives. So food industries emphasis on four different operations, namely food storage, food processing, food transport, and food preservation. So, food storage, it is one of the major part of the production of fruit. Food storage included improved storage of food such as a refrigeration cycle, refrigerants and better insulations. Sometimes due to unavoidable circumstances such as early arrivals, non-availability, market price, the raw material have to store before the processing. The storing area should be well ventilated, shaded, should use water baths, and if necessary, cold storage must be used. Second is the food processing. So it involves conservation of raw plant and animal tissues into edible ingredients and separation of inedible and hazardous components. So it is also processing factor. Next is food preservation. The food preservation means final food products for a longer use and storage with the help of chemical additives, freezing, drying, insert gas blanketing, and preservation operation reduces or eliminate food spoilage. So food spoilage is also a major aspect for food preservation. So first, physical method of food preservation: drying. Uh, food drying is a method of food preservation in which food is dried, dehydrated. Drying inhibits the growth of many microorganisms, including bacteria, yeast, and molds, through the removal of water. Water is traditionally removed through evaporation by air drying, sun drying, smoking, or drying, wind drying. But nowadays, electric food dehydrators or freezing drying is used to speed the spraying process and ensure more consistent results. For example, grapes. आता cereal grains, fruits, milk, coffee, tea, and some vegetables and meats are also dried. After drying, volume is reduced to 1/10 of the original volume. Dried food are easy to transport and store. The nutritive value of dried food is usually unchanged, but vitamin content is reduced. Due to this, the microbial growth is controlled. So second aspect is freezing. So it is the method of preserving food by lowering the temperature to inhibit growth of microorganisms. The method has been used for centuries in cold regions and in a patent was issued in Britain as early 1842 for freezing food by immersion in an ice and salt brine. In 1880, a cargo of meat shipped from Australia to Britain under refrigeration accidentally froze with such good results that the process was at once adopted for a long distance shipments and other storage. Freezing does not kill the microorganisms which cause spoilage, but freezing inactivates the microorganisms. Nutrients are not destroyed by freezing. Inactivation of enzymes by heat treatment, blanching, is done before freezing to prevent unwanted change. To improve the quality of final product, the amount of water in food is reduced before freezing. Here is the next slide. Heat, which is commonly called as the term thermal, refers to processing involving heat. Heating food is an effective way to preserving it because the great majority of harmful pathogens are killed at temperature close to the boiling point of water. In many cases, foods are actually cooked prior to their being packaged and stored. In other cases, cooking is neither appropriate nor necessary. The most familiar example of the latter situation is pasteurization. During the 1860s, the French bacteriologist Louis Pasteur underlined this. Louis Pasteur discovered the pathogens in food can be destroyed by heating those foods to some certain minimum temperature. The process was particularly appealing for the preserving of milk since preserving milk by boiling is not a practical approach. Conventional method of pasteurization called for the heating of milk to a temperature between 145 to 149 Faradays, that means 63 to 65 degrees Celsius, for a period of about 30 minutes, and then cooling to the room temperature. Nowadays, milk can also be flash pasteurized by raising its temperature to about 71 degrees Celsius for a minimum of 50 seconds with equally successful result. A process known as ultra high pasteurization uses even higher temperatures of the order 194 to 266 degree Faradays, that means 90 to 130 degrees Celsius, for a periods of second or more. Fresh food like fruits, vegetables, meats, fish are also preserved for a long time, stored by heat treatment and selling into the airtight containers. So second is the chemical method for preservation. So preservatives are sugar, salt and chemical preservatives such as chemical food preservatives, the substance which are under certain conditions either delay the growth of microorganisms without necessarily destroying them or prevent distortion of quality during manufacture and distribution. Sometimes it includes some natural food constituents when added to the food and retard to prevent the growth of organism. The use of vinegar and salt in pickling and of alcohol is branding are some common examples of day to day life. Some chemical added to the food to prevent the growth of microorganisms. It any be ascorbic acid is a vitamin C which is added to frozen patches to prevent brewing, and many examples are there. But generally, two types of chemicals are used to prevent the fruit that are as follows. First is the sugar. For preservation of fruits, sugar is also used. When sugar is added to the food, it binds to the water in the foods, reducing the amount of water that is available for the growth of microorganisms. When food are placed in a concentrated sugar solution, water is drawn out of the cells of foods and microorganisms, so the microorganisms can no longer survive. Sugar is also used with salt to prevent certain foods, especially fish and meat. Sugar may either be added to salt to create a dry mixture which covers food, or many dissolve in liquid to make a brine to surround the food. Adding sugar to a salty brine helps to confirm a sweetness to meat and fish, and also helps to reduce the harsh flavor of salt. The value of sugar in food preservation is dependent on the amount of sugar used, and adding too little sugars to food will be used unable to development of microorganism. Due to the health effect of sugar, may consider reducing the amount of sugar used in home food preservations, but remember that any reduction in the sugar concentration of product can make a food more susceptible to microorganisms. In addition, while the use of artificial sweetener to replace sugar can help retain the taste of product, artificial sweeteners do not have the same preservative action of sugar. This is why sugar-free jams and marmalades must also be refrigerated to add their preservation. Second is the salt. Salting is one of the major techniques which are used for many purposes, for preserving foods like meat and fishes. So salting is the addition of salt, sodium chloride, the molecular formula is NaCl, to food for the purpose of preservation. The growth of microorganisms in inhabited by the salt, which has the effect of drawing water out of the bacterial cells, so they become dehydrated and die. In this manner, salt is combination of other measures act as a preservative in many food such as butter, cabbage, cheese, cucumber, meat and fish. It also gives a desired flavor to the food. Salting can be done by rubbing adequate quantities of dry salt into foods, or by immersion, where the food items is soaked in concentrated salt solution, that is brine. For effective preservation, the concentration of brine solution has been maintained about 80%. So chemical preservatives are organic chemical preservatives. Sodium benzoate and benzoate are among the principal chemical preservative. The use of benzoate in certain products in prescribed quantity, usually not exceeding 0.1%, is permitted in the most countries. Since free benzoic acid actually is the active agent, benzoates must be used in a acid medium in order to be effective. Benzoic acid is more effective against moths and bacteria. Other organic compounds used as preservatives included vanicyllic acid, esters, monochloric chloroacidic acid, propionates, sorbic acid, dihydroacetic acid, and glycols. Second is the inorganic chemical preservatives such as sulfur dioxide and sulfides are perhaps the most important inorganic chemical preservatives. Sulfides are most common, effective against the molds that against yeast, and are widely used in the preservation of fruits and vegetables. Sulfur compounds are extensively used in winemaking during its use in other instances as a preservative, such as care has to be exercised to keep the concentrations low in order to avoid undesirable effects on flavor. Oxidizing agents such as nitrates and nitrites are commonly used in the curing of meat. So, food additives. Food additives improve nutritional composition, flavor, and storage stability in food products. It is used in small quantities. Food additives are categorized according to functional and nutritional benefits provided to food rather than chemical identity of additives. Some of these are summarized as below. Acidulants, that is citric acid, fumaric acid, lactic acid, malic acid, phosphoric acid, tartaric acid, anti-caking and free flow agents. Example: calcium silicate, calcium stearate, magnesium silicate, and magnesium carbonate. Antioxidants. Example: butyl hydroxy anisole, propyl gallate, ascorbic acid, and erythrobic carbonate. Some of the antioxidant, uh, ascorbic acid and erythrocorbic acid, dairy dietary fibers like cellulose, hemicellulose, pectins, enzymes, that is amylose, glucomycilase, lactase, pectin, methyl lactase, lysozyme, lipsin, trypsin, glucose isomerase, glucose oxidase. Flavor: essential oils, fruit juice, aroma, chemicals, gases like nitrogen and carbon dioxide, which is also a food additives. Thank you for the attention.